Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer, and right there is John, our resident millennial. John, how are you doing tonight? Good to see you.
Fan fucking tastic as usual.
Look at that. We got a little midget B in the
Or you
house,
fucking Kent is what he
and a
says.
little Jake from Freedom Scoop. Oh, hopefully that Robert guy got fired. Well,
Who's Robert Guy?
yeah, I don't know. I
That's
don't know
not your
that.
last name.
No, it's not. I don't know. Somebody he maybe I
Weird.
don't know something porn video. Maybe he thought he was tuning into Pornhub.
Possibly.
Nope, I'm not that lucky. Do you really want me fired, Jake? Is that what you want? Well, step up, buddy. Take me out of my job. Go ahead.
That's right.
Take
Come and
this
take it.
job and shove it. No, actually, there was a chance I wasn't going to be here tonight, but I went to I had to go to the ER today and have myself checked out on this hernia situation that I've got.
See, I agree with Ed there. Robert, you're strangely obsessed with your co-host in drag. Not as obsessed as Jake, who still may need a stage intervention.
Hey,
100%.
uh, I'm just going to put it out there. As far as Jane is concerned, Jane is quite honestly top quality um, comedy. Top quality
we're,
comedy for this show.
we were actually talking about this before we went live, and yeah, no, I was saying, I didn't really mean to like create a character or anything. It was just kind of a one-off thing, and I was hoping it would just die. But apparently, a couple of people actually really wanted to come back. So
Yeah. Hey,
I don't know.
Jane's a nice gal. I think Jane would be a good person to talk to and really get some insight on trans issues that are currently plaguing our country. I think she could give us
Mm.
some in-depth input on that. But yeah, so I did. I went to have that checked out. They did say that I need to get into a surgeon very soon, as quick as possible. But I got to put this out there. I've said this before. Health insurance is expensive, and I don't have health insurance because I'm a freelancer, and the cost of the Affordable Care Act is less than affordable. And what was funny, my primary doctor that I dealt with there, he was a great guy. And I'm going to give props to Advent Health, who's taken over here or our city with hospitals. But he's like, I was talking to him about not having insurance, and he says, I'm on a board that fights to reduce the pressure of insurance, the cost of insurance, this, that, and the other, because he sees it as basically an impediment to people getting, their health taken care of. Um,
Yeah.
and he told me, he said when he was in medical school, he had a very, very serious medical problem that he had to actually have taken care of there at the hospital where he was going to school. And he didn't have insurance. And he said that they started tapping into his, they were trying to take his college money
Mm.
from him to pay his medical bills and all of this. He said it was a very difficult time that he had to deal with. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. This is a doctor that understands the difficulty with insurance and what can happen with it. Um, so that's good. And the surgeon that they recommended I go to talk to is great. It's going to be great. Hopefully, they're required to take me without any insurance as well. But that doesn't mean there's not a barrier to service. I'm still gonna have to come up with a chunk of money up front for just the initial consultation. I think the woman said, the starting rate is going to be $160 or more just to sit down and talk to the doctor. I'm like, damn, his words are
Yeah.
expensive. His words are expensive. But
Yeah.
anyway, so much props to the healthcare, the health facility I went to today. I think that's awesome that people are doing things to help those that don't have insurance. And not to mention, it's a faith based organization, and they didn't even ask me if I believe in God, which, all right. Uh, Ed told his job to shove their insurance up their asses, which I think is going to be considered a pre-existing condition. He said I could afford the premium, no problem, but with a 3K deductible, I can't use it. Yeah, the deductibles are killer. That's why I've had a problem with the Affordable Care Act because I was looking at almost $400 a month for insurance, and that was carrying a $7,000 deductible. That's
Damn.
right, $5,000 deductible.
Holy shit.
So for something like this hernia, if it's some places will do the procedure for $5,000. I just have to pay for it out of cash anyway. The insurance wouldn't matter. It's crazy how it works, right?
Oh yeah.
Facts and logic. Yeah, when it comes to facts and logic, no, nobody's comfortable with that, and nobody's comfortable with facts and logic. So, folks,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us tonight. It's good to see we got a few folks in the chat. Please make sure and hit the like button. If you haven't already, also hit the subscribe button and make sure those notifications are turned on so you know when we're popping on the air. John, we've got a few things to talk about tonight. A little of this, a little of that. I wanted to throw some things at you and get some feedback from you. But one thing that we are going to talk about a little bit later in the show that's popped in that I put in the title, there's a little bit of snippiness going on with Mr. Joe Rogan in regard to Bernie Sanders, and I thought it was interesting, and I think it's kind of shitty too. So I thought we'd point out the shittiness of that when we
Yep.
get to that. But the first thing I want to put up is talk about is I saw it ran across an article today about a gentleman up in Livonia, Michigan, which is near Detroit, right outside Detroit. African American man. He had just won a lawsuit against his workplace for racial discrimination. And based off the numbers the bank provided, this was a lawsuit he won in the range of around $99,000 that he won in this lawsuit. So turn around and he goes to his bank, and it's been called out in the article, so I won't have any problem with this. He banked with TCF Bank, and he went into his own bank. Now this is his bank that he banks with. He went into the
Mhm.
bank with these checks that he had just gotten from the settlement to deposit them and ask for some cash, to get some cash from them as well, right? Like anybody would do, right? Hey, here's $99,000. Well, yeah, let's get that in the bank. Let's get some money. So he goes in and he tries to deposit these checks, and he's getting some hesitation, some stalling coming from the employees at the bank, primarily the assistant bank manager, to mention who is also African American. Um, and come to find out, she's telling him there's a problem with the validity of the checks. For some reason, they're being shown as fraudulent. And the next thing you know, police come in the door. There's a couple of stationed outside the door, and two come in and start interrogating him about these checks, asking him questions, this, that, and the other thing, to where he had to get his lawyer on the phone. And so she proceeds to tell them what's going on. And then she speaks to the bank manager, and the bank manager is like, "Oh, well, the checks are fraudulent. We're getting back, fraudulent warning on it. This, that, and the other. Psst, all looks sketchy." So he turns around and he says, "Okay, I want to close my account with this bank." And so he takes all his shit from their bank and he goes just down the street to a Chase Bank, deposits everything, deposits those checks. They clear within 24 hours. Perfectly good checks, no issues, no problem. And so now his lawyer has filed a case against TCF Bank for discrimination against this man who was trying to deposit his discrimination checks because the bank would not give any input as to why they were saying they were fraudulent. At one point, she did say that a void watermark was showing up on one of the checks. But if that was the case, of course, they wouldn't have been able to deposit in any bank, right?
Right.
So they filed a lawsuit against his old bank for discrimination because he was banking while black. Is that not some delicious irony there?
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
I mean, there's just ironic situations happening all through that. I felt bad for the guy, and if you look at him, I'll pull up a quick image of him. You should be able to see it, John. It's the interesting thing is he does not look like a criminal. He doesn't look like a criminal at all. He looks like a
Yeah,
pretty. I don't know. Maybe he might hack your
it's like a
password on
strapping
your
young lad.
computer, but Ed says he's banked with TCF before, and he says they're scummy. which is possible. I don't know. I've never heard of the bank till I
Yeah,
saw
I've
that.
never even heard of them. Yeah.
But given the neighborhoods they frequent in Kenosha, I'm surprised there isn't any argument of discrimination. Well, see, that's the thing. It's like, what other reason do they have? I mean, it's obvious from the other bank. Now, they did put out. I will say this: they put out an apology. Now, if you want to, we might consider them a little bit left-handed. Uh, he, they said, where did it say? Yeah, we apologize for the experience Mr. Thomas had at our banking center. Local police should not have been involved. We strongly condemn racism and discrimination of any kind. We take extra precautions involving large deposits and requests for cash, and in this case, we were unable to validate the checks presented by Mr. Thomas and regret we could not meet his needs. Yeah, I agree, Ron Helton. I hope he takes them for as much as he can get. That is, it's going to be too easy to prove that that was racially motivated. Just the simple fact that another bank puts those checks through just fine. You're fucked. I'm sorry, you're fucked. Uh, Twin Cities Financial is the name of the bank, according to Ed. He said they target certain neighborhoods within cities they go into. So it stands to reason that because he had that much money in those checks, yeah, and being an African American in an area where they target African Americans, lower income, whatever, for their banking services, yeah, it's not surprising that they would be hesitant to take that money. I mean, what do
Yeah.
you just automatically assume they're fraudulent checks because he's black. Um, Folks in this area ain't got them kind of bucks.
That's
Just
right.
saying,
Yeah.
folks in this area ain't got them kind of checks. And the funny thing was, the checks were cut from Enterprise. The car company is who he
Oh,
worked for.
really?
Yeah, they were cut from Enterprise Rent a Car, or the company itself. So it was a real company on the checks. It wasn't like this was just. Uh, Ed says that's most likely more money than the 63rd Street branch in Kenosha has ever seen before.
Right.
See, that's the thing, It's but yeah, I hope he does. I hope he takes them for a ride, because that's the kind of thing that's just. I mean, it's I don't know. Is it more intolerable that it happens to an African American from another African American? Does that make it doubly racist?
Well, so that's the thing is, like, POC can't be racist, right? So
Well, now
it wasn't racist.
that's a narrative comment. That's
Right.
narrative sarcasm. Right.
Not really. That's
Well, I
kind of
mean,
the general
I don't
thing.
I don't agree that all POCs think that way. I mean,
Most,
I've had
yeah.
POCs
I
that
think
I've talked
a
to that
lot
are
of them
like,
think that way.
no, there's plenty of racist African Americans. There's plenty of
Oh, yeah.
racist brown people. I mean, hell, there's a lot of Hispanics that just hate black people, and black people and a lot of black people that just hate
Yeah.
Hispanics. I mean, just amongst people of color, there's hatred between the races. There's
No,
like, oh,
I know. But that's just being rude and prejudiced. That's not being racist.
oh, is that what
See.
that is? Gotcha.
Yeah, it's different. Somehow.
I'm so glad I have you here to qualify these things for me, John, because I would, you know, I would,
You would remain unconfused, right, if
I
it weren't
would
for
worry
me.
that they weren't being upfront and that they were not honest. Um,
Right.
so speaking of potentially not upfront, um, we had a missile strike that went on in response to our assassination of an Iranian general, right? And it was reported to President Trump that nobody was injured in that. And then we found out, almost 2 weeks later, that there were at least 6 soldiers that were actually injured in that, had suffered some concussive damage, whatever, right?
Hmm.
Well, the Pentagon came out today with a report that says actually 34 soldiers, U.S. soldiers, have been diagnosed with varying TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, from that missile attack. 34 different soldiers, some of whom are still in care at this time. after the incident. So now we've got 34 soldiers that suffered injuries in that. Do we strike back now? Do we, I mean, do we? Is that enough? Like, because it was promised that if anybody was injured, well, actually, he only said if you killed any Americans. So you can injure as many as
Right.
you want, but we don't lash out on injuries. Is that correct?
I suppose not. I mean, I think it still got the message across, right? That, hey, don't fuck with us. And then they tried to, and it didn't really go that well. And we're just like, told you, you know.
Uh,
So I
well,
don't know. I don't think there's any need to like escalate like further from there.
right. There's a little bit of back and forth as to whether or not they actually told him there were no injuries, or if he just announced that there were no injuries because none had been reported to him, or he just
Right.
didn't
It
want
might take
to
time.
stir up anything. But this is, I guess, this is the third time they've had to come back with more information and about no injuries, because that was his thing. No Americans were harmed. We in the attack we suffered no casualties. So it's interesting how
Well,
these things come back to bite us a little bit in a way. Yeah, again, not necessarily his fault. It could have been based off the information he was given. Do remember that some of these injuries were discovered after the fact.
right.
But some were known about at the time, because there were still guys above ground trying to get drones off the ground. They weren't in shelters and they were knocked back from the blast, etc. So there was a little bit of misinformation there. Now, whether or not it was fed to him or whether or not he just took it upon himself to make sure that we didn't see any injuries or anything from it at the time, I don't know. Um, I don't know that saying that there were injuries would have helped de-escalate the situation. So maybe that was a tactic on his part to make sure that we were at a point where we could de-escalate and not have to respond because of injuries. Ron Helton says there will be permanent brain damage to those soldiers. No thanks to Trump murdering a general of a country we are not at war with. Malarkey. Trump knew instantly after the attack. I have to agree. There's some of it he had to know about, and
Some of it, yeah.
it's possible, but he had to know something because he was in the room when the strike. He was there with them when the strike was
Yeah.
happening, or he was being fed information as it was happening, so that he would know. I don't know. I'll give him a shadow of a benefit of a doubt, but these are the kind of things where I'm like, okay, we need to know these things up front. If it's the Pentagon not releasing information at first, whatever. I mean, we need a little bit of transparency on these things so that we don't come back, because now it's this kind of thing that will create distrust for the administration. It creates distrust for our government, you know, functionaries, the Pentagon, etc. How can you trust them if you're not sure the information you're getting is valid? Um, and Ron says he just knew that he screwed up royally by ordering the murder of that Iranian general. I have to say, I think it was a little further than he should have gone, based off of the varying stories that have come out from them about why they did it.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point. His last rhetoric on it was he said very bad things. He said very bad things. I'm like, dude, does that mean you're gonna start assassinating people on Twitter? Because a lot of people on Twitter say very bad things about you and
Yeah.
to you. It's like, where do we stop? Ed says you can't say that, Ron. Trump is the deity of one of the competing religions in this country. All
That's
right.
right.
So, I don't know, John. What do you think about that? I mean, is there a certain amount of discretion they need to exhibit when they report these things?
Um, I mean, it's kind of a tough position to be in, right? Because I mean, first of all, when it comes to the strike, I mean, Trump had an opportunity. Like there was an opportunity there. He had to give the order or not. He had to make that decision, and that is not an easy decision to make. Because you can't always tell exactly what the consequences are going to be, what the shit rolling down the hill, where it's going to end up. So I mean, there's that, and then there's also he had to say something afterwards, and I don't know. I don't know if he handled it exactly right, but at the same time, how do you handle that without also escalating
Well, that's the
the
thing.
situation?
Well, then, so this becomes the your poodle dog ass having to back up your bulldog mouth, right? He comes out and says this, "Oh, fuck with us, do something," and but it's like, okay, well, actually, because I very much got the impression that at he decided he needed to. They told him, "You've got to de-escalate this, or we're going to go to war." And war right now with an impeachment and the election, not a good idea, right? It's just not. No matter
Yeah,
what 4D chess you're playing. So he immediately had to find a way to de-escalate it, and to say that there were no injuries is how you can avoid having to carry out on your previous
right.
threats. But yeah, his poodle dog ass did not back up his bulldog mouth
I
on that one. You know,
like that expression, but yeah.
Helton says Trump needs to fire all of the neocons and stop taking bad advice from jackasses. Right. Well, yeah. The question though is, apparently, I read one article that said that he was presented with choice. He was presented with a few scenarios that they could act on. But because there were going to be two individuals that they just very much wanted out of the picture together at one time, he decided to act on that intelligence and act to take out those two targets. One an Iraqi militia official, the other being the Iranian general. Which I don't know if you've noticed, not much has been said about the Iraqi that was killed as well, right? It's like,
Yeah,
why is that kind of just swept under the rug that there were, two targets there that we were really after? But it is what it is.
mm.
But Ron Helton, thank you for the segue. When we talk about some of these people that are surrounding Trump, well, during the impeachment is going on, and it's full steam ahead. The Democrats have had 2 or 3 days of opening arguments. It's now getting ready to go to the Republicans. We've got all that going on. But we talked about Ken Starr and Alan Dershowitz. He pulled them in on his team, two previous lawyers who both, Ken Starr was involved in Clinton's impeachment. He was right there at the forefront of Clinton's impeachment. Both Starr and Dershowitz are representing Epstein, and of course, if they got Epstein such a limited, such a small sentence on such a small crime for everything he was facing at the time, why not get him on, right? These guys must be good. I can't get, I can't get Johnny Cochran anymore. So let me try these guys that got Epstein off, no pun intended.
Ah,
Because of course, as Ed has pointed out, it takes a 13 or 14-year-old girl to get
right,
Epstein off. Um,
right.
so now there's been some hypocrisy going on with these two guys. And all right, well, I'm going to say hypocrisy. And let me preface this by saying I'm not taking a side on this. It's just some hypocrisy I want to point out, and I want to get your opinion on, John, because you know how I am. Hypocrisy is a bitch to me whenever it comes to our
Yeah.
government officials or anything like that. So let's take Ken Starr first off. During the House investigation and into the impeachment and the setup there, Trump withheld information. He said, "No, we're not going to give you this information." He held back information. He told people not to testify. Right? Ken Starr said during the Clinton trial at one point when some information documentation was supposed to be provided, there were some delays in it, and Ken Starr said that even a delay in getting this information to us is grounds for impeachment. So delay, even just a delay in getting requested information to them, was grounds for impeachment.
I mean,
Okay.
to be fair though, Trump wiping his ass is grounds for
Well,
impeachment.
I get it. I
I
understand that
mean,
that rhetoric and narrative. I mean that aside, I'm just saying. So this is something
yeah,
Ken Starr said then, but at this point he's defending and okay with information being withheld, which Trump was just at a rally, and he said something to the extent of, "Well, we've got all the information, we've got all the facts. They don't have it," because he withheld information. Right? He didn't give up certain things that they were demanding. So there's that. I find that a little bit hypocritical of Ken Starr. I mean, he was after a Democrat back then, so you know, but now he's on the side of defending a Republican in a similar situation, right? But then you've got Dershowitz. Now, during the Clinton impeachment, he came out and he said that there does not need to be an actual crime. Basically, how he what he said was that that it implied crimes. So he was talking about abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. These kind of things. Those are offenses. It doesn't have to be a crime to impeach the president. But now that he's representing Trump, he's come out and said an abuse of power, obstructions of Congress, these are not crimes, and impeachment must be about a crime. And he even tweeted about this. And he said, to the extent, and this first sentence just really flies all over me, sorry. It says, to the extent there are inconsistencies between my current position and what I said 22 years ago, I am correct today. I'm right now. I'm
Yeah.
right now, right?
Forget all that other bullshit. No, no, no. What
right.
I'm saying right now is what I'm really
I'm
saying.
right today, right? He says
Yeah.
during the Clinton impeachment, the issue was not whether a technical crime was required because he was charged with perjury. He said, therefore, I didn't research the issue. I relied on the academic consensus that a crime was not required. In Trump impeachment, on the other hand, that is the critical issue because abuse of power and obstruction of Congress are neither crimes nor criminal like behavior. So I have now thoroughly researched the issue and concluded that although a technical crime with all the elements may not be required, criminal like behavior akin to treason or bribery is required.
Wow.
So I have to ask your opinion on that, John. Does that qualify as hypocrisy?
Yeah, 100%. It absolutely is at least inconsistency. Which I mean, I can understand if it's been, how long has it been since the Clinton impeachment? Like 22 years? Yeah, about 22 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, a person's position can change, or maybe someone get more knowledge than they had before. But
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
you're supposed to be you're supposed to be an amazing lawyer. You should know the law. And
Yeah,
most law is based on especially when you're dealing with Washington and things like this. You're dealing with constitutional law a lot, right?
I hope so. Yeah.
So yeah, I had a lot of trouble with that. So let's see. Ron Held says he originally didn't trust the intelligence services, and now he takes advice on who to murder. He is a fool. Ed says I'm having a harder and harder time every day squaring the circle of voting for Trump. I can still justify it to stop the bleeding flow of socialism, but it gets harder every day. Helton says, I will vote for whoever the libertarian candidate is, and if that throws the election to the communists, then so be it. This country deserves to be destroyed if it continues down this war path.
Ah,
Uh,
let's see, a collapsitarian, huh?
right.
All right.
Ed says, I also don't think he should be removed based on this impeachment. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Well, Mitch says, imagine all these asshats not being hypocrites. What's so damn frustrating is that these same people have fucking jobs 22 years later. I agree with that
Yeah.
hundred
But
percent.
also, whose fault is that though? That they still have jobs?
Well, that's because yeah, it's ours.
Yeah. It's
Ultimately,
it's the people who vote for them, right?
right.
Yeah.
Ed says no, he shouldn't. If they want to impeach him, they now have a real crime: disturbing the peace and sovereignty of other countries and the murder of people from countries that we are not at war with. Interesting take. That sounds war crime. A lot of people have said that the strike on the
Yeah,
Iranian
but I don't
general
I
was
don't think they want to I don't think they want to start the precedent of removing a president for war crimes because any future president would be guilty of the same, and it would just be grounds for removing anybody.
Now, Ed says that he had legal authority to do that. I don't like that he had legal authority to do it, but he did. I
Yeah.
can agree to a certain extent. I don't like the way he went about it because he was picking and choosing who he let know that this was going to happen,
Yeah.
and he didn't. I don't know. I'm still on the fence as to whether or not it should have been run by Congress before.
I don't see. I don't think it could have.
I know.
I understand why it
Yeah, the
can't.
timeline, right? It was
Right. There's no time for it. First of all, he doesn't have to. Or second of all, I guess it's second finger.
because of the War
He doesn't
Powers
have to.
Act.
Right.
Yeah,
Because he's not declaring war. Right. It's a
right.
military action, which is legal, like a different legal definition than a war.
But I will say this: he did not provide the proper documentation and information that justified it, like he was supposed to. Like he was supposed to provide them with the details of, you know, what they were, you know, because he was saying there was imminent threats, this, that, and the other. He was supposed to
Yeah.
provide that within the first 48 hours, the information that they went on, the intelligence, and he didn't provide that. Even so
Right.
much now, he's coming out and saying it's just because he said bad things, right? So, but you know,
And hang on, so Ron Helton said, "Wouldn't that be wonderful if they did set that precedent? No more warmongering." Well, that's the problem. That's why that precedent isn't going to be set. It's because both sides want warmongering. Both sides, both Republicans and Democrats, are warmongers.
right.
So getting rid of one of them for that reason, sets up anyone to get rid of any president who would be continuing the wars that both sides want to continue.
And Midget, always our conspiracy theorist. Also, Pelosi and Schumer can't be trusted not to warn their assets in the region. Not that that would be, yeah. I mean, yeah. I know people. There would have been people that would have been alerted. I joke about the conspiracy thing, but yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you didn't want too much intel being spread around on this. Again, assuming that there was a very short window that they had to work within. Um,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
uh, but you know, let's again, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, there's Democrats with assets slash friends in those countries because there's Republicans with assets slash friends in those countries just as much
Oh
as
yeah.
anybody else. The
That's what
corruption,
I'm saying. Both sides are absolutely guilty in warmongering and
yes,
double
absolutely,
dealing and all this kind of bullshit. This
right.
corrupt bullshit. Absolutely.
So now the last thing about the impeachment that I want to put out there, and I want to talk a little bit about this with you, John, because this one bothers me. So again, Parnas has come out. He's been doing interviews and he's been talking. You know, this is the guy that was one of Giuliani's cronies, and he's made allegations against Trump that Trump knew and was specifically targeting Ukraine to do an investigation into Biden and all of this. Um, Now, the first thing is, when that came out, Trump immediately said, "I don't even know who Parnas is." Okay, it's hard enough to believe that if he's somebody who works directly with Rudy Giuliani, like one of his two right hand men. Great. But as soon as he says that, well, the media jumps on that and they start producing pictures of him with Parnas, right? And it's like, oh no, you knew him. Well, you did know him. You've met him. You took pictures with him. So then he
I mean,
comes
I've seen him, but I
right.
don't know him.
And that's what he says, right? He's like, well,
Yeah.
so I don't really know this guy. Maybe I've taken some pictures with him. But Kellyanne Conway said the same thing about Parnas. She didn't have any idea she didn't know him. She didn't have any idea who he was. And Parnas came out and he's like, well, here's a picture of me with you, Kellyanne Conway. And every time you say that you don't know who I am, I'm going to produce another picture of us together. Right? So there's that, right? There's this interesting idea that nobody knows who Parnas was. Nobody knew him, but they were all having their pictures taken. You know, these two were having their pictures taken with him, et cetera. Great. People get their picture taken with the president. He doesn't know everybody that he gets pictures taken with.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah.
But this guy
Absolutely.
did work with Giuliani. Like, he was right there, along with another fellow named Froman. These were two directly under Giuliani guys. Side note, both have been indicted for criminal offenses. Right? But
Yeah.
apparently now a tape has surfaced. Now, before I talk about this, I'm going to say it right now. The legitimacy of this recording has not been 100% verified. Everything is alleged. Everything is, it's supposed to be who they say it is and where the tape came from. Okay? So
Right.
Froman, what?
No. I was saying right. Like that's our little disclaimer.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I'm not going to say that
and
this is. I'm not going to give anything to the veracity of this, other than lots of news outlets are running this story. Okay.
well, and that absolutely doesn't mean anything
No,
either.
right. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's
So
out
we
there.
acknowledge that fully.
I am just talking about something that is in the mainstream media being talked about, probably mostly from the left angle, but whatever. So in it, it there's it's supposed to be a meeting from 2008. It was a dinner meeting at Trump International Hotel in Washington D.C. in
So hang
2018.
hang on a second though, because Ed makes a good point. Does this mean we're going to see a picture of Kellyanne Conway's tits?
I don't
Very
know.
well, could.
Why would we? No. Why? Because you
Taking
think
pictures with what's his face?
with Parnas?
Yeah,
I don't know.
and he's going to keep releasing pictures of them together.
Oh,
And
maybe
I
there'll be
imagine they're going to
something.
get more and more risque as they go on. Who knows? One
So,
one can hope. Maybe. I don't
so
know. Is she hot? I don't really remember what she
no,
looks
she's
like.
really. I don't know. She'd probably be considered milfable, but till she talks, like you wouldn't want. It'd be fine if she were mute. You
Right.
know? um, yeah. So, and I agree. Ron Helton says politicians, like I said, they take lots of pictures, means
Yeah.
nothing. He said a lot of the media was running the Russian hoax story as well.
Right. And we
I'm still
again we fully acknowledge the bullshit media and
potential,
how they
right?
are full of shit.
I'm not
Yeah.
100% that the Russian hoax was a hoax. I, I, I,
I am. That was a
I don't
fucking.
know. I think the
And I
Russian.
said it from the start. That was fucking bullshit.
I don't think it's a hoax from the standpoint that just like we do in everybody, people's elections all over the world, it doesn't. I don't find it difficult to believe that the Russians tried to meddle in our election, not to get Trump elected, but primarily not to try and avoid having Clinton elected. Right? I mean that, and that's what the
Yeah.
argument is. Is that was their target, was to keep her from being elected. They didn't care if Trump was in office, if he won. They just didn't want Clinton to win because she's an asshole to them. Right. But anyway,
Yeah.
so hoax or not, it is what it is. But that's true. They report on shit. It may or may not be true. But anyway, supposedly this meeting was between Igor Fruman, Lev Parnas, and Donald Trump, and both of who were former associates of Giuliani. Now, in this meeting, they're talking about on this tape recording that Froman recorded. Okay, I don't know, why would you record a meeting that you're having with the president if you're on his side? I don't know. I don't know, but hedging your bets.
I mean, to be fair, I would record this
Right, right. You got to
conversation
hedge your bets, right? You got
because
to.
no, mostly because no one's going to believe me.
Right,
You
right.
know? You're like, whatever, John, you're full of shit. Like, no, seriously, look, it's right here.
Uh,
Whatever, that's doctored.
but so he busts that motherfucking chest. Oh, Ed's on D Live. We got a chest
Ed
bust. We're gonna
switched
have
over to
to
D Live and then switched over to
go get on D Live
back to
and
YouTube.
do. I don't even know how that chest thing works yet. I mean, oh,
Oh
maybe he's
yeah,
talking. Oh, he must be talking about. He's talking about Kellyanne Conway. I think that's the chest
yeah,
he's talking about.
I think so.
Bust that chest is, that's a nice play on words there too. But anyway, apparently in this conversation they're talking about Marie
Are we able to
Yovanovitch.
open the chest?
I don't know. Maria Yovanovitch, who was our
Oh, I
ambassador to
can.
the Ukraine, right? Okay, don't get too hopped up on it. I
I'm
don't,
I'm just distributing the rewards. 30 seconds they'll be distributed.
oh, I didn't know. Ooh, that's actually
Ed is our top contributor, so he gets Linos or whatever. I don't know how any of this shit works,
it's Bitcoin
but
stuff. It's Bitcoin stuff.
congratulations.
You had to be there.
Well, you're getting
It's
it,
like
Ed.
that's not what I meant. Yeah, we figured out what
Well,
you meant after the fact, but try and stop John from doing something unnecessary. But anyway, so they're talking about Ukraine Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, and Parnas is relating to Trump basically that she is in the Ukraine bad mouthing him. She's been telling, she had been basically walking around telling everybody on the tape. He says that Parnas says, "Wait." She's been walking around telling everybody, "Wait, he's going to get impeached. Just wait." Talking about making moves on this, that, and the other. Um, and this is something he related in a news interview on Fox. Well, apparently Trump is on the tape saying, and it's assumed to be Trump. That's what they're going with. And he said, "Get rid of her. Get her out tomorrow. I don't care. Get her out tomorrow. Take her out. Okay, do it." So again, pointing to the fact that he was, involved in getting her, thrown out of Ukraine because she was not forwarding his agenda because she was a holdover from a previous administration. I think she went back as far as the Clinton administration because how long she's been there. So that begs the question: if this is an authentic tape, first off, Can we verify the authenticity of a tape like that? I guess we could do voice analysis, this, that, and the other to verify
Yeah,
that
we
it's
wouldn't be able to do
real.
that on. We wouldn't be able to do that on our own. I would think we
Right.
don't have the
Well,
technical
not us, but
know-how.
I'm just talking about, from an investigative standpoint, the authorities, the FBI, CIA has
Oh
ways to
yeah,
find out if the recording is actually what it is.
yeah, absolutely.
So since she's been brought into this discussion, this is part of the abuse of power, et cetera, that they are talking about, and brought her into the conversation. Does this, if this tape is authentic, is this something that needs to be brought into the impeachment as well? We've taught, I've said, there's talk about whether or not Parnas's testimony should be brought in. Does he need to be brought in to testify? Of course, they're shutting down anybody coming in to testify. So the question begins again: is there information that we need to bring forward as evidence in the Senate trial, or again, do we just leave it at you've got what you got and that's that?
Um, I don't know. I mean, the whole thing is a sham in the first place. So, I mean, to add more bullshit, to add more like gray area kind of non-verifiable shit. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's gonna help.
Right.
I mean, because I mean, people already either hate Trump or like / love Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one's gonna be, swayed to one side or the other really from anything that happens. I mean, the lines have already been drawn. People already know who they're going to vote for. Not just in the election. I'm talking about for the impeachment for removal from office if that happened. That vote goes through.
Right.
So I don't see the point to it.
Midget says, so the reason we care that Trump would be exercising his constitutional authority to remove an ambassador is because this Parnas guy is involved. No, not because Parnas is involved. It's because Parnas is making the assertion that he wanted her removed because she was not pushing to get an investigation into Biden from
Mm.
Zelensky and the
Mhm.
Ukrainian government. She was not forwarding that agenda for him, so therefore Trump wanted her gone. That's what it speaks to. That's the line of reasoning Parnas is bringing forward as to why what this is exposing, which
And
speaks to abuse of power. Um,
and Ed makes a good point. The Senate can only try the charges brought forward, which is true. They would have to file more articles of
well,
impeachment in
mm,
order to. I would think.
well,
And
right.
and also his next thing is what I was really talking about is and they also need to try and sell another investigation to the taxpayers, which is true. That would be the second term
Hold on.
impeachment.
Wait. So, but ultimately, the things that Parnas is bringing forward speak to the current charges. This is evidence and testimony that would speak to the current charges. These are not about bringing new charges. This is stuff that he wants to bring forward about the charges that are currently there. this is what it's about. That's why I'm asking if it should be brought in. They're not wanting, the Republicans don't want new evidence or new testimony coming into this, which it could. It's completely fine for that to happen in the impeachment, is to bring this forward, to add new evidence, to listen to testimony, bring in new witnesses. They could do all of that. They proved it by voting not to do that. So it's not about new charges. It's not about a new investigation. It's just bringing forward new potential evidence and deciding on the veracity of that in the current trial that's going on in regards to the charges that have been leveled.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm like, okay, so this is that's why I'm on the fence with it. It's like this is potential evidence, but then of course, yeah, I guess it would require some investigation as to the veracity of the evidence. But again, it still speaks to the current charges, not something new that would have to be brought forward. Um,
Hmm.
uh, uh, the Senate can't do the House's homework for them. And I agree. I will say this, though. The Parnas information that he is bringing forward was not available to them because it was currently tied up in his indictment that was going on. So that was information that they couldn't get their hands on till after, which to me says, okay, well, you probably should have held, if you had some inkling that that information was there, you should have waited to finalize and take the vote and send it to the Senate till that information could be added as additional evidence in this case. That's my thinking there. Um, but I don't know. It's a sticky situation. But I will say that from reports that are coming out, Republicans aren't taking this trial very seriously. Apparently when they started out, they went back to the original rules of the trial in the Senate, like no speaking out of turn, this, that, or the other, on threat of imprisonment, like that was put in, early on in the impeachment, back in the days, that if you stepped out of line during an impeachment trial in the Senate, you could be imprisoned, right, if you didn't follow the rules. So they were like, no electronic devices, no phones, no tablets, no,
Yeah.
electronic devices. Well, guess what? Apparently, smartwatches are okay because senators have been coming in wearing smartwatches, so they have access to their phones and
Yeah.
their communications through their smartwatch. I'm like, okay, but it was reported that at one point on the second day, I think it was the second day of the trial, 21 of our 100 senators were out of the room. They were not in there doing whatever. I don't know. Maybe a fifth of the Senate had to take a bathroom break all at the same time. I don't know. But it's like
Hmm.
21 senators not in there during, opening arguments, things going on with a fucking important trial. It is what it is. Sham of an impeachment, whatever anybody wants to call it. This is like one of the most critical things that our government can do. It's one of the
Yeah.
it's key thing for our Senate to be doing. It's like 21 of you out of the room at one time. What the fuck, guys? Come on. I know it sucks, but sit down and take this shit seriously. Come
Right? I mean, they only work like 4 days a week anyway. Fuck them. They can sit there for a few hours.
on.
But yeah.
Yeah, I know. I understand that it's gotten into this crazy place. Helton, he says they can keep coming up with more evidence until after the 2020 election. This is just a political clown show, and I get it. I mean, it's you know, I, I'm telling you, there's a lot of similarities between this and the Clinton impeachment. I mean, when it's all said and done, it's like it's just which side is attacking the president right now, right? I think the only legitimate impeachment that I've seen out of the three was Nixon. I mean, there was legitimate reason to go after Nixon, getting a blowjob in the White House, and kind of
Yeah, that's probably one of the
denying
less
that it
things that I'm
happened.
worried about.
Yeah, yeah, denying that it happened.
Yeah. It's probably one of the lesser
It's
you know,
possible. It's
drones.
possible, Midget. They could have all been out looking at compromising photos of Adam Schiff. Why you would want to? I don't know. I've seen Adam Schiff, and I'm like, yeah, he's not.
I don't know.
There's.
It's one of those things. Like I can never help it. I have to see those kind of pictures. I don't care what they are. Like I've seen Count Dankula's balls, and I know he's seen mine because the Snapchat thing was on red or whatever. So I've seen that. I've seen like what is it? Ben Shapiro's sister's tits. Those are they're pretty nice. Um, just any like the fappening when that happened. I saw all those pictures. Um, T.J. Kirk. I watched the banana video where he shoves a banana up his ass and pours like hot chocolate wax stuff on his balls. So it's just one of those things. Like it's a piece of history, I guess, that you just have to kind of suffer through at least once.
Yeah, I no. I have no no, no. I'll just
I
listen
don't
to what
know,
people have
man.
to say about it. I mean,
See, I have to see for myself. I can't.
yeah.
I can't.
There's things that I just don't want to have in my mental repository of things that I've seen. I mean, whether it's stuff like that, or even if it goes to like when beheadings that happen in another country and
Oh, I
they
mean,
put
I've
it out
seen
there.
those too. Yeah.
I can't watch that. I don't want to
In
see
fact,
that. I don't want to have to try and unsee it because you can't.
I saw one. I think it was an ISIS like video where they were like torturing some people, and they had them all like laying flat on the ground, like lined up on their stomachs. They were all like that, and they had hoods over their heads, and their hands were bound behind their backs. And there was a guy going around like cutting their backs with like a razor, so he'd like cut their backs, and then another guy would come up behind him and like pouring like salt or something like that like onto their backs, like onto the wound, and it was weird. Like they got to this one guy and he did the first cut, and the guy kind of flinched a little bit, and I was like, "Oh no!" Like he's gonna really get it now, and he did. He cut the shit out of his bag, like way more than the other guys. And then they poured like more salt on him. It was pretty shitty, and that was
Why?
on YouTube too.
Why would you want to
That was a
watch that?
YouTube video.
That's just
Curiosity, man. I'm telling you, it's one
yeah.
of those things.
That's morbid curiosity. That
Yeah,
qualifies as morbid curiosity. My Schadenfreude
fair
has
enough.
never been at that level. Never.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see it. I mean, it's now it's not to say that if it's something in a situation where it's like okay plane crashes and there's bodies and there's people and they're needing help, I'm not going to like avoid not seeing that. I'll go and help, right? I'm not going to that's different. But oh no, no, no! I don't want to see you brutalizing people. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see your balls. I don't want to see your scat. I don't want to see. I think the thing that did it for me was when I was younger. I don't know, early days of the internet, AOL.
Oh yeah.
Somebody sent me an email. On AOL because of course your username on AOL was basically your email as well. Blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
somebody was sending me sent me an email as a joke, and I opened it and this image, and it's this girl sitting in front of a couch while a guy's taking a dump in her mouth, and I'm like, oh my god, I'll never be able to unsee that.
But see, that's the thing is like maybe it's that sort seeing that sort of thing at a younger age kind of desensitized me to it. So
Mm.
like that really doesn't bother me all that much. I'm trying to think of a time when it really did. Maybe like Tub Girl, something like that, or Two Girls One Cup. Before I found out it wasn't really poop, but at the same time, still pretty nasty.
Um, I had a real quick. I had a question for you because you just sparked this in my head. I had thought about this the other day, and I kind of let the thought go. I didn't dwell on it too much, but I wanted to ask you a question because you talked about being desensitized when you were young. I started down this train of thought about uh, television, movies, things like this, and how inundated these this is in younger generations. Like I think it kind of started with my generation, especially with my generation having kids, where devices like the TV was the first thing that started becoming the babysitter. I know this has happened for a long time,
Oh yeah.
but more so in these more recent generations, and then video games became the babysitter along with the TV and the movies, the whole nine yards, right? So I
Hmm.
was wondering, in the idea of SJW, and this idea that they have in the younger generations, like Generation Z, which is not moving away from home, as don't want to leave home till much
Yeah.
later in life, these kind of things. Has this long exposure to what is presented in movies and on TV um, changed the way they see what life is supposed to be like in the real world? So when they see these shows on TV, for instance, where you have the whole family, is like older kids are still living at home, and they've got their grandkids with them, and like there's this big family unit still living in the home, and
Yeah.
no punishments and this, that, and the other. I mean, has this possibly warped these younger generations into this idea that that's what real life is supposed to be like? I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, no, no, absolutely. I can give a couple of examples. If you watch a sitcom, right, what's the makeup of the family, right? You have the, usually fat, dumb husband. You have the, um, intelligent and successful wife, who's
Who runs the
either
house?
basically runs the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's see, you usually have 2 to 3 kids,
Right.
maybe a foster kid or some of some sort, depending on how long the series has been going. Um, with one of the older siblings, being
A
like
dumbass
the
boy.
like the well, no, like the focus of several of the episodes,
Oh, sure. Get breaking the
and they're
rules
always
and getting in
doing
trouble.
something right, doing something stupid. And they sit down and have a talk about it, and
Everything's
that's
a conversation. No ass whoopings, right?
right. Generally, yeah. Um, and then you have the quirky but clever, youngest one who's probably like 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that, like some real young kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's that wide age range, you know. Um, and yeah, so I think first of all, people see that as like the ideal, or at least kind of how a family is supposed to operate. Like the man is just kind of dumb, but he cares, but he everything he does is fucked up. He fucks up whatever he's trying to do, but it's
Right.
coming from a good place, and then the mom has to clean up the mess, whatever it is. Yeah.
Right.
Um, and then like the whole, oh, men don't want to talk about periods, or or hear about period, or uh, never want to buy tampons and that sort of thing. That comes from sitcoms, absolutely, because I've never met anyone over the age of like 12 who's that disgusted by periods that they're just like, don't even mention it. Oh my god.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and it's like, oh no, of course, invariably in one of the episodes, the husband's going to get a call while he's at the store or something like, can you pick up some tampons? And that becomes like a little,
Right. And
five or
he's
six
all
minute
freaked out.
adventure about, yeah, about I don't know which one to get, and this is
Right, and that's
embarrassing.
and that is so crazy.
Yeah,
Like I can't tell you how many times in my life I boldly walked down that fucking tampon aisle.
yeah,
Sure
I don't
thing.
give a fuck.
I'll grab some
Like,
pads. What you extra
yeah,
absorbent, flow heavy? Here it come, baby.
yeah,
I don't care. I'm buying
right,
tampons. You know what it means when I'm buying tampons? I'm getting some pussy. I'm getting some. I'm getting some
yeah,
in about 3 to 5 days. I'm just saying.
that's right.
What do you
Yeah,
yeah, it's these ideas. I think I feel like that TV has a lot to do with the entitlement that younger generations feel they have. Because again, most of the shows you see on television, when you talk about the stuff that's mainstream, that's popular with younger people, et cetera, that they can
hmm
watch, which are sitcoms and stuff like this. No repercussions for actions. Everything is a sit down and like everything works out in the end and nobody really had anything bad happen. Oh, maybe somebody
Yeah.
got arrested and went into jail, for the day, for a couple of hours or
Right,
overnight or
until they can
whatever.
get there. And when they get there, they're like, "Oh my God, are you okay?"
Right? And
You know, instead of
surprisingly
like, instead
every
of like, you better be lucky. There's a bar between me and you right now, because about to take you out. You know, like, yeah.
Right. And the irony is like, they'll have an episode, you'll see episodes where they're like talking about struggling with money, and then there's the episode where somebody goes to jail and they're just easy get them out of jail just that quick, right? It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
let me get you out. It's crazy. It's funny how something like that get the extra large student meals only last for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, I went down that train of thought, and I'm like, damn, if TV hasn't done this, but then then I look and I'm like, okay, so does that mean that we have to, if we are of the opinion that it has changed the outlook of generations on real life, does that mean we have to give credit to the glorification of violence versus the violence that we see presently in our society? And I'm saying violence. I'm not leaning towards mass shootings, but I'm talking
Right.
the occurrence of violence and the mindset of many of these violent people that this is acceptable behavior, or
Well,
they've
that's the thing is
justified it to
actually
themselves.
violent crime is down. So I really don't think that that's been a factor. Now, people who would advocate for using violence, I think you can attribute that to TV and movie violence. Because, like I've said it on the show before, people who know what actual violence can do to a human being would never advocate for it. I mean, ever.
Well,
If you've actually watched someone with your own eyes in front of you get knocked out, that is very scary.
it I
That is
can
not something that you really want to be around, and it's not something that you're going to forget either. It's not like it's just a casual, like, oh, look, you got knocked out.
well
Like that's not how it is at all.
I can agree with that to a certain extent. Um, but I would counter with, there are a lot of people out there that just don't place a lot of value on human life,
Yeah,
and I do believe that, again, televisions, movies, all of this, um, is a reinforcement of that idea as well, right? I mean, how many people can you see get killed in one good action movie, right?
oh yeah,
Look at John
tons.
Wick. How many people do we kill in a John Wick movie,
Oh, tons. Yeah,
right? So there's,
absolutely.
and again, no repercussions. Killing, 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 killing. Occasionally on these movies they'll do something like, they'll have some 30-second, 60-second emotional moment where like, oh, all the killing takes a toll on me. Bang, 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 bang,
Yeah,
bang, bang, bang.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Exactly. Yeah.
it's like it's not taking that much of a toll on you. I think it's taking more of a toll on your bullet count than, than
Right.
anything.
On your wallet, trying to buy all
Right,
that
right.
ammunition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you got to go buy a whole new box of number two pencils, Mister Wick. You've got more killing to do.
yeah,
But yeah, so again, yeah, violent crime may be down. Of course, you'll have the counter to that being that, oh well, there's on average one mass shooting every day for the last however long, blah blah blah. And I get it. We look all over, we look at gangs and things like this to pull
yeah.
that mass shooting data. Gangs are another thing that I think are have gotten more glorification, and probably feel that kind of entitlement glorification in real world based off of all the shit that's seen. I mean, I don't doubt for a minute that criminals pull from television playbooks constantly. It's like, oh
Sure.
man, that was a really good crime. Let me see if I can replicate that, right? If I can do just that same thing.
Yeah.
Helton says there were two cars involved in a road rage incident in the next town over. One of the occupants was shooting at the other car. The driver of the lead car ran into a fence, shook up, and walked away. Wow, that's.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
But you know what? Yeah, you can do that in a movie all day long. Nothing bad is going to happen to you.
Oh, not even just that. Like you can have a full out, several car chase on the interstate, and have people shooting between the cars and
Or blowing up a fucking
jumping.
oil rig to stop
Oh,
who's
always,
behind
yeah,
them, right?
right. And of course, like no cops ever show up, and they just kind of chill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really. How do you have some of these car chases that go on, and it's like you're really not going to incorporate like maybe a cop, two cops, something, somebody
yeah,
seeing
no,
this. You're not just speeding 30 miles through an area and nobody's noticing that you're driving 875 miles an hour.
right. No one's calling the cops. Like, hey, there's a huge shootout on the
Right?
interstate.
Car just drove through my back fence right across my yard, kept on going.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't call the cops. Yes, yeah, yeah.
this oil truck just
This
exploded.
happens.
Like,
This is just one of those things.
yeah,
No, but I think that's an interesting study it would make. I think it would be a great
yeah.
study to really look at and see what generations are most impacted um, by television on their real world expectations.
Well, if you want, more stuff like that, check out Aiden Paladin's channel because she does all kinds of shit like that. She's what is it, a sociologist or something like that? I believe she's working on her doctorate for it. So she's at least got a master's, and yeah, the social sciences is what it's called. I'm not sure exactly what the actual technical terms are. Social sciences,
Right.
and she talks all about how like outside stimuli can affect how it affects your psychology and your makeup and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, yeah, I like that, Ron Hill. That's
I
funny.
know I saw that. Sorry, I
I know
laughed.
I saw that. I know. No, I
The
had to
cops were
stop the
there in
movie for a
less than
second.
5 minutes. The donut shop was pretty close to the scene.
Right. But yeah. No, check out Aiden Paladin because she's got a lot of really good videos about that. About
Yeah.
how it's like especially online, like internet culture. That's why she went into social sciences, was to study internet culture. So she's definitely a an authority on that sort of thing.
Would you agree or disagree that this kind of thing, television, movies, etc., the way everything is presented nowadays in media, um, do you agree that it is creating more sociopaths in our society?
Um, it might contribute to it.
Because I'm of a belief that our society is much more sociopathic than it's ever been.
I think it's
Um,
more just self-centered than sociopathic.
yeah, but that's kind of like that gives that leads to the dark side is the thought on that, right?
Yeah,
That mindset is the slippery slope to sociopathy. It's one of the key things. A certain and when you say that, I mean, I believe it bleeds into a certain level of narcissism, which I think a lot of our society has, as well as social media feeds our narcissism, and thus another quality of sociopaths is narcissistic behavior. I do believe that that's
sure.
happening more in our society than is healthy.
Yeah,
Midget,
apparently our volume balance is awful. Apparently,
who said that?
Midget did.
Who's lower, who's higher? That doesn't say anything.
Yeah,
You
let
can't
us
say the
know.
balance is off. Because if I'm looking and you must be telling me John's louder, I don't know. Uh,
And turn it down when John opens his upper asshole. So
all right,
apparently, I'm
so,
high and you're low.
well, then watch this. Let's see. Let's see what we can fuck with next. Let me see if I can get a little balance in there.
Stand
And
by.
so I brought you
And then
down
midget.
and I
So
brought
what?
myself up.
All right. And while you're saying that, midget said she's base as fuck and also engaged to hard bastard. I don't know if she is anymore.
Who's the
Talking about
hard bastard?
Aiden Paladin. We're talking about.
Well, who's the hard bastard?
He's another like kind of right wing YouTuber. I'm not super familiar with his content. I think I've seen one or two of his videos. But I don't think she is anymore. I think there was a whole thing where that like drama and stuff went down. and she's over in the UK now, which is interesting.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, with a name like Paladin, you know, it's a
yeah,
good
she's a
place to be.
paladin.
Yeah, she's a paladin.
She's also like some sort of like Nordic gods worshiper. It's weird. It's
Okay.
funny. She's all into like yeah,
Yeah, you
like
lost me.
Odin and
Now you
Thor and all
lost me.
that
Now
kind of
I
shit. She
can't.
doesn't talk about it on her channel. It's just funny. It's not like
No.
none of her videos are about it. But
Now, Ron Helton says, and Ron, I'm going to ask you a question about this. He says having both parents working is the main problem, which I agree with. One of the parents needs to have an active role in raising the kids. I am all over that, 100%. So I'm going to ask you. Andrew Yang talks about having a $1,000 a month UBI, which would mean that a two-parent household has
oh god,
$2,000 coming in a month, which is a perfectly good salary for one person to make and stay at home and raise the kids. So, would you agree that that is an avenue to getting us back to healthy households that have a parent raising the kids? Is it worth it?
no.
That
See, that's the
question to
thing
you,
is,
Ron.
oh, okay, because I'm gonna
Yeah,
say I've
I
already
know your opinion on this. I'm putting it out there to Ron Helton because this is that's my mindset. That's the one caveat that I have about the UBI is that it could help to reinvigorate family values by allowing
for a
a
little
parent to
while
stay home for a little while, for however much while.
until no until inflation gets so high that
Well, sure,
$2,000 a month is nothing.
yeah, sure, but who knows if that we don't we can't say that that would happen, just like we can't say that it will reinvigorate family values. We can't, and neither one, without trying
Yeah,
it, we would never know what the scenario is going to play out. But I just put it out there to you, Ron. Is that an avenue that is logical to you or somewhat acceptable to you to get to that point where we have a parent at home? Because I agree. Fuck, that's what's wrong with us. We have
yeah,
daycare raising our kids. I mean, they were just putting through. They were talking about new regulations and new parameters on daycare and infant care and I'm like, no, we should not be addressing this like it's a common thing, like this is expected to happen. If you have a child, they're going to be in infant care, they're going to be in daycare, because now we're talking about infant care. This is the one that gets me the most. Is
yeah,
like infant care facilities. No,
yeah. That's pretty
no,
fucked.
that's what a parent does. Sorry. but
Yeah.
but talking
See, I
about
was
these things
in.
as it's just common everyday stuff that we have to accept. But go ahead.
I was gonna say I was in preschool for 1 year when I was obviously 4 years old, right before I went to kindergarten full time. That was back when my mom was working. She didn't work much until I got much older, but I don't know if I've told the story on the show, but I got one of my preschool teachers fired once. Me with the and a friend of mine when we were 4 years old, because we went out to like the like little like playground in the back, where kids go and play and stuff. And they had one of those big like where you can like go up the steps and there's like a little sliding pole and there's a slide to go down. Those little tic tac toe boards that they have, and there's like a little tunnel underneath
Right.
on the bottom. And so me and this other kid, Benjamin was his name. I still remember that to this day. His name was Benjamin, and we decided that even though recess was about to be over, we wanted to keep playing. So we went and hid in that little tunnel that's underneath the thing, and we just sat there. And we were just hiding, and so the whole class went back in, and then we got out, and just so happened that the owner of the daycare and a couple of other teachers were standing outside, and so obviously we got caught right then, and we got put in the little timeout thing that they had, like a little, basically like a corner of a like a bookcase. You could just sit
Right.
there for like the rest of the day, and then come to find out the teacher got fired because she didn't count the kids before going inside, which is of course required. And I think that's a state thing. I'm not sure, but Yeah, yeah. I thought that was kind of funny though.
Right.
She was negligent and got fired because she let us sit outside. I don't know. I thought it was a funny story. My mom still brings it up to this day. She's like, "Remember when you ruined that poor woman's life?" Like, I was poor, man.
Right. So Ron answered my question. He says, no, the government created this problem. The best solution is shrink the government in the Fed and federal income tax. Now, I'm going to say this. I can listen to anybody talk about getting rid of federal income tax all day long. You want to talk about it and you want to do away with it? Sure. I can listen and I could even possibly support it. Great. But I will tell you this. They could stop taking federal income tax out of your paycheck right now, today. For most people, the amount that they take out for those federal income taxes is not going to put enough back in their paycheck to accommodate the cost of living that we currently have, that is a disparity between wages and the cost of goods. We have a very big gap between those two things right now. It's just there. Whereas, a UBI, as it's presented, a UBI puts $2,000 untaxed into a household. That's a salary for one parent. I don't agree that removing federal income tax is the end all be all to getting us back on track. I don't think it's going to bring the cost of goods down. I believe a fair tax
No,
would be
there's
instituted instead, and so people would still be paying taxes on the goods they purchase, but that's not necessarily going to drive the cost of goods down. It's just a tax that's on the goods. You still have to pay for those goods. We got to bring manufacturing back into this country, make manufacturing cheap enough in this country so that the cost of goods can go down. These are the
right.
kind of things.
So deregulate.
Deregulate, yes.
Right.
I don't think getting
That's
rid of federal income tax is the key to putting that much more money in people's
not on its
pockets.
own. Not on its own, right? But
Right.
that's the thing. It's in conjunction with the other things that libertarians talk about.
I mean, hell, there's a lot of people in this country that can literally have no taxes taken out of their paycheck because they claim enough dependents to where their tax burden out of their paychecks is nil. And then when they get to the end of the year, they have enough deductions to where they still get a refund back. I mean, there's people that are actually getting tax money back, not having to pay it. Now, that's loopholes and whatever you want to call it. I mean, and I'm talking about lower income. I'm talking middle class and below are getting back tax money instead of having to actually pay in anything because of the deductions with kids and energy efficient vehicles and home interest, deductions, the whole 9 yards. I mean, when somebody tell me that they got money for working all year. I mean, hell, I have someone close here at home that got $5,000 back last year. Five
That's
thousand
fucking
dollars back.
insane.
So you tell me, how is income tax hurting everybody? I mean, when people can get money back as opposed to
Well,
paying
no.
taxes.
That's the thing, right? It's because she was being having extra money taken out of
No,
her paycheck.
no, she wasn't. No,
Oh
she
well,
just
yeah. I
she
mean, if you
just
want
played the
to,
deduction game. She played the
yeah,
deduction game.
yeah,
Newborn child, this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, it all wound up getting her $5,000. Plus, she worked, almost a full year, and or actually for a full year, and she had very minimal being taken out of her checks at that point. She didn't pay any taxes. She got paid to work. So it's an interesting dichotomy when we talk about taking the federal income tax out. The federal income tax only hurts
yeah.
certain people, right? Not everybody's being negatively affected by that. Now, Ron says, like we did, the Fed is the cause of inflation. That they have disrupted the natural business cycle. What goes up must go down, of course. What's the Gibbs spigot? What's that? Oh, the Gibbs. Gotcha.
Welfare,
Gibbs
yeah.
welfare, right.
Yeah.
UBI is only useful if you need workers, taxpayers so badly that you need to incentivize people to move to your city, state. Yes and no. I'll be honest. A lot of jobs would open up, I believe, if a UBI was instituted from parents that were like, okay, both of us don't have to work anymore. honey, quit your job. Whichever one it is, husband or wife, quit your job. And then now there's a job that's opened up. Now, who's going to jump on that? I don't know. Will the company just hire two part-time people because, that are getting $1,000 in UBI? Maybe. But jobs would open up as people left the jobs to stay at home. So you still, you've got a job market there, this, that, and the other. This is just a random thought. Helton says we can shrink the government by 90 to 95%.
Mm-hmm.
The main function of government is defense and the protection of liberty. Well,
Mm-hmm.
actually, apparently our government's about the removal of liberty, sir. Ed says there's a reason that Alaska has UBI and California doesn't. I don't agree with Yang using Alaska as the UBI benchmark. I don't, because that's a one-time event every year, and it's not a static amount. It's just based off oil profits, et cetera. But they only get that once a year. It's just kind of like an extra tax return for them, as it were.
Yeah.
Uh,
I wonder if Alaska has a state income tax. I'm going to check that out real quick.
Now, see, Helton says getting refunds is not the point. Getting refunds because one has kids is just another ridiculous problem with government taxes. No federal tax, and you support your brood. And I understand that, the deductions and everything that work in, but again, they're there to where some people never have to pay any taxes for, I don't know, however long they can keep claiming those deductions and making them work for them. It's a screwy system, yes. The tax system is kind of screwed. So there's a certain sector of people. There's just somewhere right here in this area between low income and middle class, right in this area that gets hit with income tax, and then there's all these people above that can get away with loopholing completely through businesses and their personal money, and then lower income that just are getting money given to them as well as the other benefits that they might be taking advantage of. Yeah, it's a really screwy system. I agree, Ron Helton, but man, trying to drop all of those gibs is whew.
Well, that's why you don't do it all at once, right? You kind of wean it off. But I did find out that Alaska apparently does not have a state income tax. So
Well, but they
them.
still have Fed,
Of course, everyone. Yeah, and you can't get away from the federal income tax.
we don't have a state income tax,
Right.
right? The other thing that I like about this state is that unprepared food is not taxed either.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing. But of course, the funny thing about that is I think that's just a direct play against the Gibbs that are like the WIC, the food stamps, because you can't buy prepared food with that. You have to buy unprepared stuff.
Right.
So there's no taxes for them, no taxes for everybody else. I think that was just a gimme.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that water is not taxed as well. Like bottled water is not taxed.
Yeah, but that's not considered prepared. It's just water, right?
Well, yeah,
There's no preparation.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. I mean, you gotta pump it from the spring.
Sure. But so like
filter it,
But see, unprepared is considered like a box of macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
Right, that's considered unprepared because it's not. You can't go to the deli and spend your food stamps on deli food.
Right.
Right. So Ron says, Ed says, I play the deduction game like crazy. I pay a lot in throughout the year, but my tax accountant hates me. Helton says deductions for kids is a socialist concept, not a liberty concept. I can agree. Another gimme by the government that, but I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie, man. It eases a tax burden when you have those deductions factored in. I mean, it really does. I'm on the fence with it, right? It's like one of those things. It's like, okay, do I owe money in taxes? No, I've got a kid. Factor in that deduction. Oh, good. I break even. I can live with it.
And no, Ed, we do not have. We don't have bottle deposit, right? We can take the bottles back and get.
I think there's
5
certain.
cents or whatever.
I think there's certain places in Florida that would allow it. I think it depends on the municipal, the local area.
I don't know. I don't know
some
if
states do
me. I don't know any near me. So that's all I'll say. And I don't participate, obviously. So I don't know.
And Ed, Ed puts up the argument, which we've heard before. I understand
Which,
that
yeah, I
landlords
mean,
know
I've
you're
given that
guaranteed a
same.
thousand a month. We've talked about this before, but I think that
Yeah,
anybody that wants to talk about how the free market will sort itself out, that same thing would sort itself out as well. Um, you know, but then Ed says GBI only benefits landlord. It fucks the rest. I don't think it only benefits landlords. I mean, it's like I don't.
yeah.
I think there would be a lot more people besides us that would benefit from a UBI besides landlords. I mean, you think about luxury goods. Okay, the cost of this can go up. Now I can charge $700 for a gaming console as opposed to $400 for it because people have $1,000 coming in a month that they don't. You know they're not working for, or 2,000, whatever the case may be. Um, Helton says, well, they can do all of the necessary cuts in welfare taxes, shrink government, cut military budget, or we can wait for the complete collapse later this fall. Later this fall. Wow, he's
When
expecting it to
Trump's
happen.
reelected.
Is that what it's going
Yeah.
to be when Trump's reelected?
Oh yeah.
Total chaos. Here we come. Uh, he says they could do it gradually. Yes, they could do it gradually, but I mean, you have to ask yourself this question: how gradual is gradual? Like, I don't know how old you are, Ron. John, you're getting ready to turn 30. Do you
Yeah.
think that they could what speed would they have to roll it back? Would you be able to see all of this in your lifetime at 30 years old? Say you're going to live to,
I think so.
you think they could roll it back that aggressively?
I think so. I mean, I think it would have to start with like time limits. They already have. I think with the EBT, you have to renew it every 6 months, and they look at your financial situation again and reevaluate how much you're going to get, or if you qualify at all. Um, but I'm saying I think we can do it to where you can do it for say 3-4 years, and then once you've hit that, it's a certain amount of time before you can qualify for it again.
Right.
So like if you got 3-4 years and you haven't done anything to try and get yourself off, then sorry. I think you can start that way.
Yeah.
Say, hey, look, make it very clear. Like, look, you have this amount of time. You
Hey,
better do something, figure something out.
I try to get myself off every day.
Ha.
Ron says he says what did he say? He says get rid of filing taxes. No direct taxes means no direct control of the people, and the government is neutered as it should be. This ends the tyranny of the majority. Now, here's the argument I would make for that, Ron. You said earlier that it's the government's job to provide defense and protect liberty, right? Um, if the government is not receiving tax money from the citizenry, then we have to find a way to pay for the defense of this country, i.e., the military. Now, that says, okay, then we go to the states. We ask the states to pony up the money for
Mm-hmm.
that. So, in turn, if the states are ponying up the money to put into the government in taxes, as it were, to help fund military, the defense of this country, that means that your state is now going to tax you. That means your state is going to put an income tax on you. Every
Right.
state is going to do it. You're not just going to have sales tax, you're going to have an income tax too from your state. And then you have to be okay with that. But I will always
Right.
argue if
So
it's theft from federal, it's also theft from state.
yeah. So I mean, yeah. So a lot of the states do already have the state income tax, obviously. So you're being taxed by your state and the
Sure.
federal government at the same time.
Right.
So that does kind of ease the burden, quite a bit, to only be taxed by the state. And then the states also have things like sales tax.
Sure, for some
You know,
states it would ease some burden, but I guarantee you that state income tax is probably going to go up that they already have. Because
most likely.
because
And then obviously we would receive one. We would start doing as an income tax. But I mean, a couple of things on that. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Oh, yeah, yeah. Like Ed's saying right there, it's not necessarily going to be a state income tax. Doesn't need to be income necessarily.
yeah,
Yeah, sales and property taxes are one thing. I
uh,
mean,
uh,
these are all like transitory though. They're not
sh-
necessarily like the end all, right?
sure,
It's just a way to kind of move away from that. You
sure,
can't just turn taxes off overnight. That's
right.
just
But
absolutely
I
unacceptable.
disagree that sales tax would generate
Import
enough.
and export fees, yeah.
I don't think sales tax are going to generate enough. And we've already determined many times in the past that property taxes are just another form of theft. Property taxes are wrong. They shouldn't be there.
Hmm.
But I do know what they go to pay for, what they're supposed to be paying for. They're supposed to be paying for
Right.
the local infrastructure, schools, et cetera, et cetera. States have reasons for that state income tax and what they use that money for. So if the federal government stops taxing income, and they say to the state, "Hey, you need to provide us with tax money from your state as a whole." Well, the state is immediately going to go, "Well, we're getting state income tax already to provide for these things. Now we need more money to provide to give to the government as the federal government as well." It's a slippery slope that is going to result in you're going to be taxed by someone. Whether it's a local government or whether it's a federal
Yeah.
government, someone is going to tax your income because it is the easiest target. It is the easiest thing to do, and they will take the easiest route. Now, it may not be the popular route, but it is going to be the easiest route because it's a precedence that has been set throughout the years since we've
Yeah.
had an income tax. It's just that. Helton says that import and export fees should be able to cover the cost of maintaining the Navy. We will return to state militias. That's all well and fine and good, but then you
See,
start
yeah,
to get
see,
into a
he's doing
delicate
end goal
balance.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, he's talking about end goal and not how to get there,
yeah,
and that's what I'm trying to figure out. Live here, trying to figure out, the transitory period. How do we start moving away from that sort of thing, from taxes altogether, preferably? But I highly doubt that's going to happen.
right. And
It's that whole. There's two guarantees in life, and that's death and taxes.
and
It's
and ultimately that's
yeah.
why I'm a fan of the gateway to no taxes is the fair tax. I mean, that is the gateway, I think, that
Yeah.
the path to follow. You can get rid of federal income tax if you institute the fair tax. Then people are just taxed on the purchase of goods, which is fine. You want to spend money, you pay taxes on that like you do a sales tax. You've done with a sales tax. I think
It's
that
what
we
it
have
is. It's a
to.
sales tax. Yeah.
Right, but a federal sales tax, as it were, to a certain
Right.
extent, right? Which to me says, okay, then we need to reevaluate and lower state sales taxes because you don't want to be double taxed on goods, right? Or excessively taxed, because that's what it basically winds up being if a state is tossing sales tax on top of a fair tax. Um, I think that's the gateway to getting rid of taxes. It's the first step to getting rid of an income tax from a federal level, but it would go a long way to getting rid of taxes altogether from the federal level, because then you can eventually step it down to the states and say, okay, you as a state can institute your own fair tax. This
Yeah.
is the standard tax that you're allowed to, this is what you're allowed to do. And we as a government, we're no longer going to charge a fair tax, but that is the expectation of taxes generated by the states. You know,
Yeah. So I want to address what Ron Hilton's saying here. He's saying get taxes out of your head, Robert. Taxation is theft, which obviously it is. Direct taxes are the worst. So you can't just say, I don't think, get your taxes out of your head. Because what Robert's saying is actually like that's the main concern that people are going to have. And so even if we talk about like a fair tax, that's extremely radical to what, you know, uh, to what we have now. It's
the
extremely
status
radically
quo.
different.
Right,
Right, it's radically different, and it's gonna be hard to get people behind that.
right.
And so get behind even that, and then just to say, okay, well, we're not going to, you know, we're just gonna stop taxing altogether. People are gonna not know what the hell to do. They're not gonna know like what's going on, how things are gonna get paid for, even if there was an actual plan, which I've not seen one. From the chat here, a plan to transition other than Ed saying rip the band-aid off. But even that, it's like, okay, so the country's just
Yeah,
gonna fall apart because it's not
right,
gonna know what to do with itself.
right. And you've
I
got
think that
to,
this is a legitimate conversation to have.
yeah, it's a huge plan that has to be put in place to have states transition to taking over the tax burden that income tax going away would create. Yeah, there's and this is not a 1 year process. This is not a 5 year process. This is a multi-decade process that would have to go into place to get rid of federal taxes at a federal level. It really would. And if you really think that it's all going to end come this fall, we don't have time to even get started on it. Right? There's just no
And
time. We've got an impeachment to take care of, sir.
Midget B does
No,
actually bring up a good point.
no. We are.
We haven't gotten to Joe and
Oh,
Bernie
I was
yet.
gonna because
But,
they did this for me. They gave me a segue when were talking about socialism and all this
okay.
socialist talk, because that leads us into Joe and Bernie. Um, but because we don't need a full 30 minutes to talk about Joe and Bernie, I don't think.
No.
But we've still got a half hour of the show left. But thank you for helping moderate the show. I appreciate that. One
Yeah.
thing Ron says, no, Robert wants to keep funding government. Too much government is a problem. No, I don't want to keep funding government. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm trying to think of avenues that get us away from taxes. If you think taxes need to go away, we have to have a logical path to making that happen. And that
Yeah.
means thinking about taxes, thinking about what taxes do, what the money's used for, and what we can do away with so that those tax burdens are not necessary.
Right. And the
It's a
thing is,
huge conversation.
and that's the thing, in order to get people behind getting rid of taxes, you have to convince them, through argumentation and show them a plan, show them here's how we're going to do it. Here's, we're going to do this and that, whatever it is, show the plan. Just shouting taxation is theft at them doesn't really do anything for people,
Right.
you know.
And of course, remember, just like what you're saying, Ron, inflation would be reduced drastically. People would stop being parasites, etc. Sure, these are all perfectly good speculations on what the end result would be, but
Hmm.
till there's no telling. We have no idea. We can't really say what would happen. We have no idea. All we can do is attempt it and start trying to find the right path to making it happen, and then see what happens. Because none of us know. I mean, if Nostradamus is here in the chat with us, please step forward. But anyway, yeah. So talking about all these socialist programs, that does bring us up to bring Bernie to mind. Um, so there's an interesting thing going on right now. So, Joe Rogan. You're familiar with Joe Rogan, John? You've heard of him before?
Quite, yes, I'm quite familiar.
One of my favorite comedians, actually. I think he's
Oh
funny as
yeah,
hell, and he doesn't give a shit. A lot of people think he's a little bit racist, a little bit controversial, whatever. He
he's
was
sexist,
right.
homophobic, Islamophobic, transphobic, all the phobics and isms that you can possibly be. He's that,
Uh,
apparently.
he was doing an interview, and he was asked. He said, "Who would you vote for in the upcoming election?" And he said quite clearly, and this was very well thought out. He said that he thinks that he would probably. He said, "I think I'll probably vote for Bernie. He's been insanely consistent his entire life."
Yeah, and
Okay,
that's accurate.
he's basically been saying the same thing, been for the same thing his whole life, and that in and of itself is a very powerful structure to operate from, which is great.
Yeah.
Whether it's socialism, et cetera, et cetera, that is a good point. Bernie, and something else that somebody else pointed out, Bernie's relatively scandal free. Like there's not a lot of you don't see skeletons coming out about Bernie, even
Yeah, I was to say the only thing I've seen is his wife mismanaged some college's money,
sure,
and the college went under.
right.
So I mean,
Um,
there is that, but that's as far as I've seen for
yeah,
any kind of scandals.
like most of the things that get thrown at Bernie, most of the dirt that gets thrown at Bernie is things that he said in his political career,
Right.
which make him look either extremely socialist or communist or whatever they want to
Yeah.
say, or make him look wishy-washy or flip-floppy. But as we talked about earlier, well, after what you say in the '70s is a hell of a lot different than how you feel in the 2000s because it's a different
Hmm.
world, et cetera, whatever. But because Joe Rogan did that, apparently there is movement, and one of the people involved is a leftist journalist named Carlos Maza. I've not heard of him, but I think you're familiar with
Yeah,
him,
you have.
John. Huh?
Yeah, you have. Yeah,
How?
you have.
Where have I
When we
heard?
covered, when he was the one who was trying to get Steven Crowder taken
Oh,
down
that's right. I do remember you
because he
talking
called
about.
him. Yeah, yeah, because he called them. What was it, a lispy queer or something like that? And so he was trying to get he was trying to get Steven Crowder taken down. So
Right.
yeah, you have at least heard that name. I understand completely why it wouldn't stick in your memory
Yeah, it's not
because
like somebody I
who the
followed
hell
up on
cares?
or looked into, right?
Right.
Because of what
Yeah.
he does. But anyway, so it is, he is making a concerted effort, along with some others, to try and cancel Joe Rogan on social media, to shut him down. Which, good luck. But because he came out for Bernie, and he says he said Bernie's campaign, cutting a campaign ad with Joe Rogan fucking sucks. Rogan is an incredibly influential bigot, and Democrats should be marginalizing.
I thought we don't do that. Aren't we inclusive?
Right?
I thought we were inclusive. We don't marginalize people. In fact, we feel bad for marginalized people.
Wait, hold on. Did
So
Bernie had rape allegations?
I don't know about.
Were they allegations that were
I
never
mean, my dude's
founded, or
80 years old. There's
right?
no fucking way he's getting it up.
Well,
I don't think so.
well, on which campaign trail? I'm sure he's campaigned quite a few times in his history.
Even
So,
then, dude, I
um,
hope my dick doesn't work at 76.
um,
Jesus
but I
Christ.
am going to put this out there: sexual assault allegations don't mean dick to me. If
Yeah,
there's
that's
not, if there's right, if there's not a
yeah.
crime, if there's not a crime worth looking into, and nobody looks into it, I mean, if it was hushed up, okay, it was hushed up. But we've seen that happen, right? I'm
Dude, I
sorry,
mean, everyone and their mother these days has sexual assault allegations
right?
against them. I mean,
Um,
that means nothing nowadays because the fucking left just loves to like just ruin the definitions of words and they just love to
right.
dilute them so that they don't mean anything. Like, when was the last time you got called a racist and it actually affected you in some way?
Um,
Fucking, I can't even remember.
yeah. So
It's par for the course. I mean, uh, yeah. Now the pay for staffers thing, I heard like a little bit about that, but I don't know any of the details or anything, so I don't know.
yeah. So and that's the thing. You know, how many of these things have
Oh wait,
resulted
so
in
a few of his staffers were sexually assaulted on the campaign trail by male staffers. Well, that
allegedly?
has nothing to do with that. Oh yeah, allegedly. That has nothing to do with Bernie
Right.
though, so I
Right.
don't think you can put that on him.
Right. Do you go after the gun manufacturer when somebody
Right,
shoots
exactly.
somebody? He can't control what these staffers are doing. Now, if he found out about it on the campaign trail and didn't pursue getting rid of those guys, then there's a
Yeah.
discussion to be had there. But where is the evidence and where is the ongoing scandal? Why are these things not being thrown up in his face constantly? If he goes up against Trump, let's see how much of this gets thrown up in his face. I mean, we're talking
Yeah.
about scandalous things that are all over the media, et cetera, that are, that should be damaging to him. To some people, apparently, it is damaging to his character. I don't know. Again, have these things been, when you talk about banking fraud, proven, prosecuted?
Yeah, I don't know
Where do
anything about
these
that
things
either.
go? If that's what I'm always asking. If there was something, fraud's a crime. If it was fraud, how did that end? Was it paid off and kept hush hush under the table? Was there no
Mhm.
crime there to pursue? So therefore, there was no indictment, investigation, anything like that. These are the kind of things that I will always ask when these things come up. But as far as his message and as far as how he represents his ideology, yeah, Joe Rogan's right. Bernie is pretty much consistent. I did
Yeah.
see something that somebody I think said on Discord that he used to talk about millionaires and billionaires, but now that he's a millionaire, he only
He
talks
talks
about
about billionaires.
billionaires,
Yeah.
which
No,
is
that's
okay.
absolutely true. Yeah, fair enough.
Um,
Absolutely fair enough.
and that's what I, these are, so as far as Joe Rogan is concerned, no, I don't think you can cancel somebody like Joe Rogan.
No.
He's got too many hardcore followers. He's got too many fans. He's got too many people that actually respect what he has to say because he doesn't pull punches. Now, they did throw up something speaking to the bigotry, the racism, calling him a racist, because he did a podcast a long while back, and he was talking about going to see the Planet of the Apes. He was recounting the story of going to see the Planet of the Apes, and in the as he's talking about it, he's like, "Oh, me and my friends, we were going to go see a movie. We wanted to go see Planet of the Apes, and my friend pulled up the theater that was close nearby, and I asked him, is it a good theater? Is it a good place to go? And he's like, yeah, it's a good theater. It's okay." So they go, and he said, we get out of the car, we're all hyped up, we're going to go see Planet of the Apes, and we walk into the theater, and we're in the Planet of the Apes. Because he was in
Mm,
a very prominently black neighborhood. He's like there weren't any white people around, so
I
he
gotcha.
put something like that out there. Now, yes, I can honestly say that that's a very kind of racially motivated thing to say.
It's tongue in
Um,
cheek for sure.
yes,
Yeah.
and he even said in that same podcast shortly thereafter, I shouldn't have said that. Right, so
Yeah.
he backed it up, backtracked a little bit on that,
But that doesn't matter
but
though.
they don't
Yeah.
include that in the clip of what he said, right?
Right.
They don't include that in their narrative when they're attacking him with it.
I mean, shit.
Um,
In the first special I ever saw by him, I think it was back in like 2005. He used the N word like several times in it. Like not in a derogatory way, but that obviously that doesn't matter either, right? Context doesn't matter. But I mean, he said it plenty of times. So I mean, that accusation could be levied against him no matter what.
well, the one thing that I'm a big fan of having discussions, right? You've got to be
Yeah.
able to talk to people that with opposing opinions and have legitimate conversations, not just knock down drag out brawls, right?
Mm,
And Rogan does that. He'll sit down and talk with somebody he doesn't agree with for hours and have conversations, ask them questions. And
yeah.
I have to say that even because I was listening to Ben Shapiro talk about this canceling on a part of his Sunday broadcast, and even Shapiro does this. He will sit down and talk to people that he doesn't agree with and actually have legitimate conversations. It's not an attack fest necessarily, not all the time. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's, he sat down with Andrew Yang and he doesn't agree with anything Andrew Yang is saying, but he sat down and had, even as he put it, a very interesting conversation with him,
Hmm.
and where he learned things and he understood things better about Andrew Yang's position, etc. And I think that's very important with Joe Rogan is that he sits down and he has these conversations, and he's not just a shitheel that's spouting one side or the other and
Yeah.
attacking people for their viewpoint. It's
I know it's so ridiculous because like Joe Rogan is so middle of the road, and like he's so I don't know. I mean, first of all, he's an amazing interviewer. Um,
that was Joe
he's a
Rogan
really
that said
smart
that,
guy.
Ron. Sorry,
Do
sorry.
what?
Ron was
Oh,
asking.
Ron.
Yeah, that was
Right.
that was from an old podcast that Joe Rogan did, where Joe Rogan was talking about that anecdote. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was just saying that he's interested in the conversation and just talking to people
Right.
about things, and either whether it's about themselves or current events, whatever it is. But I mean, that's all. That's what he really does. He's not. He doesn't normally like push for his own thing. He might tell you, "Oh, I believe
Right.
this or I believe that," but he's not going to say, "Everyone go vote for something," or "Everyone go do this," or
Right.
"Everyone, you should believe this." He doesn't push it on you.
Right.
He's kind of like, "Yeah, here's my thought process. Here's what I'm thinking about it." And that's about it. So, I don't know. This whole like, Joe Rogan's this bigot of all the isms and phobes that you can be. I mean, I don't know. I think that's ridiculous because first of all, he said several times, like, look at the transphobia. He said several times that, first of all, he has trans friends, and that, of course, people always say, "Oh no, that's not an argument" or whatever, and that's fine. But uh, but no, I mean, he even said, if you want to get the surgery or whatever, and if you used to be a male and you want to be referred to as a she, that's fine. It's like I'll even do that for you. His only issue is when it comes to sports, which I mean, he was a huge, he
Right.
commentates for the UFC. He did kickboxing back in the day.
Right.
You know, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Men and women
You
shouldn't
know,
be in the ring together, right?
right. And the problem is just because you're biologically, you know, male doesn't make you a female as soon as you transition. And so you don't want just like this dude to beat the shit out of a bunch of women. You know what I mean? And that's I think that's a perfectly reasonable, conclusion to come to.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't understand why these people want women to get their asses kicked all the time. I don't know. I just don't get that. But so that's where
Well,
the transphobia is supposed to come from.
right.
I don't know why homophobia. Maybe because he said faggot a bunch of times. That's my only guess. But
Right.
he's never showed any actual like hatred towards gay people ever. So I don't know.
Well,
And
oh, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, Ron saying, "Well, look at the intro to his show. It's a monkey making noises." And I get that's a joke, but that's because his whole thing is like, "Oh, we're monkeys and we're
Right.
just monkeys who
Well,
learn how to think."
well, shit.
You
Our
know, like,
our whole podcast is just two guys, two monkeys making noises. I
right,
mean,
making noises with our face that
right.
are supposed to
Or
mean
your
things like
your
that.
your upper asshole, as it were.
Right, as it's commonly referred to, apparently.
All right, so John, to recap, or not recap, but to follow up on two things. I got two questions for you. Just get your quick opinion on them. First, this came to mind when we're looking at all this, these allegations against Bernie and this, that, and the other. We were talking about scandals. What gets hidden, swept under, et cetera. Rudy Giuliani has again come out and said that he's on the verge of releasing damning corruption evidence and this, that, and the other on Joe Biden. He's saying that he's about to release this, shouldn't he have done this already? Isn't this? I mean, don't we have a responsibility to get this shit out there if it's true? If you're going to make these kind of allegations, whether it be against Biden or anybody, and you say you've got evidence, et cetera, should that not? I mean, isn't it more damning to hold on to it and not do something about it?
I mean, you should, but you have to wait till the season finale,
Gotcha.
before you drop bombshells like that.
Gotcha.
That way the season ends on a cliffhanger and you're excited for the next season
All
of
right.
America.
And
Yeah.
And then one final question, kind of a recap question on all the impeachment talk that we had, because I've seen a couple of articles talking about this. So I want to get your opinion, and I'd love to hear the opinion of anybody in the chat that wants to throw their 2 cents in. There's been put out there this idea that the way Republicans are handling their side of the impeachment, the way things are coming to light, based on polls, we'll say polls of 50 over 50% of the country wants to see more evidence. It would like to see the additional evidence introduced into the impeachment. Blah blah blah. They're saying that the way this is being handled from the Republican side is hurting their chances in the 2020 elections, whether it be Trump or anybody that wants to be reelected in 2020. That Republicans are hurting themselves by the way they're handling this, the whole impeachment thing with their. Fuck you. This is a gimme. We're just gonna. It doesn't matter what you say. We're just gonna treat it as bullshit. Would you agree with that? What is the thought? Are the Republicans hurting themselves by the way that they're handling their side of the impeachment?
No, I don't think so. I think that the only way that they can respond to this is abstinence. Um, and like I said earlier in the show, and I've said it, plenty of times before, people have already picked a side. They already know who they're going to vote for at the end of the year. They already know, if they are likely to vote for Trump, they already know the Democrats are full of shit. So the Republicans pulling the same shit against them isn't going to hurt their chances at winning to those people. And then people who would vote Democrat, aren't going to vote Republican no matter what. So I really don't think a lot of this affects it.
Valid. I could see that as valid. Uh, okay, I don't know. I don't know. I talk into my mic and midget still. I mean, this is a mic. See this right in front of my face? That's a microphone. So I mean, I talk into it. I don't know why there's a disparity between the two. It's because you're having to come through my desktop audio, so that's how it's put through. I don't have a direct line to your mic. So I guess my desktop audio is putting out a higher volume than my mic. I don't know. Maybe I'll adjust my gain next time we're running a show. Maybe it'll help. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't like fucking with my
What
mic
I'm
settings.
interested in is how Ron Helton was able to say the word faggots in the chat. That's very interesting because normally those kind of things it won't let you send the message if you say something like that.
Hmm.
So I'm very interested in that. Yeah.
Oh, you mean in the how I was able to get the
In
word
the
in
chat,
chat?
yeah,
I
he's
don't
able to
think
type it out.
I don't think I. Don't you have to turn on filters for that? I pretty
No,
much
no,
left.
YouTube does it. YouTube does it automatically.
Do they?
Yeah.
Well, fuck
So
them.
like you can't say fags. That's why people have put figs instead.
Maybe it has something to do with the fact that I changed the age restriction on it. So you
Could
can,
be.
it might have something to do with the age restriction that now you can get away with saying more. I don't know. Type some
Could
naughtiness
be.
in there. Let's see what gets let's see
Yeah.
what gets filtered and what doesn't.
Yeah. Fair enough.
All right. On the count of three, everybody throw your potty mouth words in. One, two, three. Poop. Uh, all right. All
And
right.
hang on, because Midget B was saying also Joe Rogan's pretty blue pilled. He's a normie. I do agree that he's a normie. He has like the internet culture stuff, like when Jordan Peterson told him about Kekistan back in the day, back when that was a thing. Same with Sargon when he had him on. Talks about internet culture, and he was a big fan of it, but he hadn't heard of it before then. So he was getting caught up, and he thought it was great. So I do agree he's a normie, but I don't think he's quite blue pilled. I think he's kind of red pilled. I don't think you're ever going to see him be black pilled, but I don't think he's blue pilled.
I've watched a lot. I've watched his stand up quite a few times in the past, and he pretty much he just seems angry with everybody. So in his stand up, like he doesn't pick targets on one side or the other. He'll go after everybody.
Yeah,
If they tweak his norm, as it were.
well, he goes after issues most of the time.
Right. That's what I used to love about Jon Stewart when he was back when he did the Daily Show. I used to love that Jon
Yeah.
Stewart, he had his side, like he knew what side of the aisle he would stand
Oh
on,
yeah.
but he would ridicule everybody. He didn't care. It was like if you did something stupid, he supported Obama, but I watched him roll Obama under the bus a few times,
Oh
just
yeah.
because of stupidity that Obama did. So,
See, I
uh,
like Jon Stewart as well, and I don't know if it was because I was young and much more left than I am now, or if everyone else was just so awful that or if he actually was, just like what you were saying, maybe he was. I don't know. That was a long time ago. I know
no.
he did well in that. Didn't he have a debate with Bill O'Reilly? I think it was. Or am I thinking of? Might be thinking of Stephen Colbert.
Yeah, Stephen Colbert
No, no, no. It was Jon Stewart, wasn't it?
that did what now?
A debate with Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, Jon Stewart did that one.
It was
Yeah,
Jon Stewart. Yeah, yeah. Because remember, he had the platform that like raised him up, so he was as tall as Bill O'Reilly. I thought that was pretty funny.
I have
'Cause Bill
not.
O'Reilly is like massive. He's like 6'7", 6'8", something like that. He's huge.
What
And
is?
Jon Stewart's like a normal sized guy, so like he just gets on this little like platform and it raises him up to be as tall as Bill O'Reilly.
What is DMT?
It's some like drug,
Oh,
but it's like a hallucinogen. I think it's like a natural chemical in your brain. Like when you're about to die, it releases that chemical and it makes you hallucinate and like gives you like the warm, fuzzy feeling, so you don't freak out right before you die.
right.
But you can actually extract that,
Yeah,
and
I've heard
it's,
about
it's in
that. Okay.
nature, yeah. And you can smoke it, and
I
it'll transport you into like another dimension, basically. I've
I
never done it,
I
but
I have
I've heard a
someone
lot about
I
it.
have someone close to me in the household that is dying to try it. And
No, I
pun
think I
intended.
know. Right.
Yeah. Now I will say I want to point out something, Ron. Was it Ron said it? Where is it? Oh no, Ed said. Remember, CNN will take the same poll 1,000 people at a time until they get a spread they want to publish. Sure, I get that,
Okay.
but one thing that I try and avoid doing, I don't look at specific polls. Like that's the thing. I try and look if I'm looking at something. I look at something and I see if it's an aggregate of polls that have been taken right from
Hmm.
varying sources. Because while people may say polls, oh, polls are slanted, blah blah blah. Great, I get it, but when we're testing a drug, when we're doing an experiment, this, that, or the other thing, we use control groups to determine the larger scale, right? You can't
Yeah.
test it on everybody, so you have to use control groups, which is what polls technically are doing, is trying to take control groups and determine an outcome. So if we, that's why I try and look at aggregate polls. When
Hmm.
multiple sources are giving a range of 50% to 54%, then it's easy to say that varied polls, whether it be coming from the left or the right, are saying somewhere in this range. That's what I try and go with. But, like I said, I'm not going to, I call them polls for a reason. I'm just saying, there's,
Yeah.
there's, there's viewpoints out there that, we have to take into consideration.
So just one more comment there. Ron Hilton says Rogan thinks everyone should do DMT. I don't know. I know he does. I don't know if I would agree with that, but I do think that everyone should do mushrooms at least once in their life. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's a first of all, it's fun, and secondly, it does kind of change your perception on things, and it changes the way that you see things. Obviously, with perception, it changes the way that you think too, and so it's just kind of interesting to have that like different mentality, and you can kind of understand people better. I think.
LSD did that. I
Yeah, I
mean, we
mean,
don't need
I
something
wouldn't.
new for that. Mushrooms can
I
do that.
know. Right. I mean, I wouldn't want to encourage people to take like that man-made substance like that.
Yeah,
Because
everybody's
I mean,
always.
you can get really bad batch and all that kind of crap. You have shitty acid and there's good acid and yeah. I
Well,
would say just do mushrooms
I,
at
I,
least once.
I will say, and I don't know the veracity of this, but that person I was talking about apparently found out that there's some sort of like rare strain of mushroom that will actually produce the same chemical.
DMT
Yeah,
or
so that you can get it outside of the source that you would normally think you'd have to get it from. Like that, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, the
you talking about
veracity.
acid or DMT?
DMT. There's a strain of mushroom that puts off basically the same chemical, so you can get it in a natural way versus having to take it from you know other
Yeah.
means. I don't know.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
That's
I
how
don't. I don't
people. Yeah.
care. I'm not into the hallucinogens anymore. That was when I was young. This kind of
Yeah. Me
thing.
too. I haven't done it
Um, you
in
know,
forever.
I fuck all that stuff. If you're doing that kind of stuff, just remember you're only trying to escape a reality that you can't change through doing it. You're only going to
Yeah.
change your inner reality and how you view your external reality. It's really all you're going to do. But
Expand your mind, man.
just say
Yeah.
no
Oh, did I ever tell you about
to
that? Like,
something. To something. Say no sometimes. That's
one of
is
the
all I'm
one of
saying.
the first times I ever smoked weed was actually by at a friend's house in his garage. They had a refrigerator out there, and there were two Dare magnets, one for him and one for his brother. Dare the what is it? Drug abuse resistance education program. I think that's what it is.
I
The
think it was drugs
drug
are
something.
drugs are really excellent, is what we used to say it was.
Yeah, something like that. But they had the little Dare magnets, and we smoked like a blunt right next to. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of funny.
Right. So midget, no, we didn't see your dirty word. Type it again so that we
No.
know what you tried to put in, and we'll know what was filtered out. Um,
Um,
yeah, right. I get it. Uh, Ron Held says I've thought about
Picture
doing a dream quest with
yourself.
peyote, just not sure I want to do the vomiting afterwards. Yeah, peyote is but I'm telling you, one time is all you want with that shit. But if you want a similar experience without the vomiting, depending, Eat the worm out of a bottle of mezcal. It's very similar experience. Ed says, picture yourself in a boat on the river with tangerine trees and marshmallow skies. That's just a day in the life, brother.
Wait,
You do enough
isn't it
acid,
marmalade? I'm pretty sure
marmalade,
it's marmalade
marmalade
skies.
skies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. says, well, that's gay because I could see it there in the chat, like I posted it. Aw, they were nice enough to let you see what we couldn't. That's so nice. Uh,
Interesting.
all right, so Dare was to keep cows off drugs here. All right, folks.
See, over around here, cows produce the drugs.
Right? Well, yeah,
Yep.
not anymore. Not with the feed they're
Not
giving
not as
them. You
often.
don't get the good
Yeah.
mushrooms anymore.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
no, I know that's what happened with the place that we used to allegedly pick mushrooms from.
mhm.
They started doing that with their cows, and so they stopped popping up.
Boy, I tell you, when I was growing up and I was gathering cow shit for years upon years out in the for our man, I could have started a cartel, a mushroom cartel. I was
Oh
kicking those
yeah,
things out. I was like, oh, these mushrooms, kick those out of there, get the cow pie. You know, thousands of
yeah,
dollars worth of mushrooms gone to
yeah. We used to
waste.
get grocery bags full. Yeah,
Hey, well,
and
yeah, we
we
didn't
didn't
see
see
it.
it.
Yeah,
It just,
you posted it wrong. You're misspelling it, is what it is.
yeah.
That must be what it is. All right, so John, I'm gonna say let's get the hell out of here.
Yes.
Hey, I like that idea you had off mic, but if you don't want to announce it yet, you don't have
No,
to.
we'll figure out some stuff for
So
it first.
just know there's an announcement coming. All right.
Yeah.
So that being said, outside of that, I want to thank everyone for showing up tonight. We appreciate you coming. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please hit the subscribe button. No, that's fine. Now put it in the HT, 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 HT. Please, HT.
Oh no.
Eight, no, HT. Don't you dare. Don't do it. Don't finish it. Please don't finish it. All right.
Oh, he'll do it. I
John,
know him. He'll do
John,
it.
John, admin his ass. Admin his ass.
Oh man.
Take the wrench away, quick.
Nah.
But we will be back again on Monday for our regular Monday night episode of Shooting the Shit. And then guess what, John? Guess what next Friday is? Do you know? Do you know what next Friday is going to be?
Oh, next Friday should actually be the 29th, right?
Yeah, that's not it.
No?
Well, yeah, it's the 29th, but that's not what I'm getting at.
Oh.
Come on, think. Come. Anything? Nothing? Nothing?
Oh no, that should be the 30th, won't it?
I don't know, John. I don't know what the date is. I don't keep up with that crap. Dates are just numbers on a calendar. No,
Yeah,
next
whatever.
Friday will be our 69th episode. Should be
Yeah.
spectacular. Do you want to be on top or bottom?
It doesn't matter to me. Probably on the bottom. I like to lay back and just chill.
You have no fucking standards. But anyway,
Sorry.
did you guys know this word means something totally different in the quick? Yes, actually, I do, Ron Helton.
It
I
does,
actually do
yeah.
know that. I absolutely know that, and it's crazy what people do with words. But anyway.
Yep.
So we're going to get the hell out of here. Thanks, everyone, for coming along. We will again see you on next Friday for our episode 69. Should be exciting. I'm sure we can think of something.
Yeah.
But outside of that, please drop into all these places John's about to tell you and check us out.
Yes. Check us out on Twitter at the Gin Gap P. Check our Discord server out if you haven't already, which I think most of the people in this chat are in there. Check us out on freedomscoop.com, along with other people such as Jay Edgar, who's in the chat, and Stephen Ignoramus is on there as well, good friend of the show.
Oh, yeah.
And we can also buy our shirts there, which you should do, you fucks. Yeah. Oh, never mind. I'm not going to go. Maybe we'll talk about it on Monday. But buy our shirts. That's all I'm going to say.
Buy our shirts. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, then now with all that said and done, I want to get the hell out of here. I'm going to go and pretend to take a nap. I'm going to take a nap and then I'm going to go to bed for the night.
Sounds good.
Folks, thanks for listening. Have yourselves a wonderful evening. We will check you guys out on the flip side. Talk to you soon. Peace out.
Yep. See you guys.